Hello, and welcome to Raise the Bar, the Sky High and Fly Jump Camps podcast. I am your host, Troy Haynes. I'm a former UCLA high jumper who's been coaching for over 30 something years now. I don't want to tell you exactly how long. I graduated in 88 and I've been coaching ever since. This podcast is my brainchild to try to draw some attention to the athletes, incredible athletes and coaches and trainers that work hard in track and field. We have had many guests thus far. I say many. I think we're in the teens. But previous guests that you may have heard on my podcast are Doug Nordquist, who made the 1984 U.S. Olympic team in the high jump, jumped and came in fifth, right behind his cousin, Dwight Stones. Leo Williams, who made that same team as an alternate. He has been with us. Randall Cunningham, whose daughter Vashti is one of the great jumpers here in the U.S. amongst the women, who's made the last two Olympic teams in a row and just got through competing in the Bahamas against one of my jumpers, Barbara Bachaka from Canada. And then some guests you have not heard yet that are coming up are Maurice Jones-Drew, a famous running back and both at the UCLA level, college and pro. Great interview with him. And Willie Banks. Just had Willie last weekend, and that hasn't come out yet, but that's really looking forward to getting that one produced and out so you can hear. Willie's got a lot of great stories and a lot of energy still for track and field and improving the state of track and field here in the U.S. and around the world. So that is some of what's been going on around us. And my next guest is a gentleman that I met about 10 years ago at the Irvine Track and Field Invitational here in the Southland. His name is Rod Gatlin. He's currently coaching at El Toro High School, I believe, where he went to school. And also he has coached many other places around the Southland. Rod played football and ran track. He was a long and triple jumper. He was fast. He played all the way up into, I think he played some semi-pro ball. He's going to tell you, I got lost when I gave Rod the command to send me his resume. I got lost in just a sea of things that Rod has done, people that Rod has worked with, football, track. He's currently working with a tennis athlete, Ruby Hansen. He just, there's stuff coming out of Rod all the time. He's a great motivator. He's great with kids. I've watched him, train athletes now for a while. And it's always a pleasure watching him work. He works at very high levels. His kids go far, they listen to him. So he has the gift. Not every great athlete has the ability to coach. The stuff might be in their head and they don't always do a great job of getting it out and, to someone else so that they can understand it and utilize it. And I've been watching Rod do that for a while, both motivationally and technically. He does a great job of getting technique to his young athletes in a way that they can apply it and get better. And obviously he does a great job of that. So we're going to be talking with Rod about all kinds of stuff. He has done speed training. He's done sprint coaching. He has, coached football players, like we said. He's got ties to Mission Viejo football. I saw Mark Sanchez, former USC quarterback and NFL quarterback for the Jets, most notably. The famous butt fumble, if you remember that. But Mark Sanchez was a star quarterback here at Mission Viejo High School before he went to USC and before he went to the pros. And Rod spent some time with him, and just can't wait to jump in and hear what Rod is going to tell us about what's going on currently. I do know that his daughter Jada is currently working on some scholarship stuff. I'm gonna let him tell you about that. Again, he sent me a lot of information and I kind of got overwhelmed with the details, but suffice it to say that there's a lot going on there as well. So not only his athletes, his training, both speed and jumping, and not just with track athletes. In many ways, Rod reminds me of our guest, Aaron Washa, my very first guest. We got to get Aaron back on again. He was awesome, awesome young man. They both have the track and football background. If you may remember, Aaron did not play any college sports after being a two-star athlete in high school. He went to Michigan State and got his degree in conditioning, athletic conditioning training, got all those things done, got a master's degree, and started becoming the strength and conditioning coach. He has his own business now. And so he was doing that, but then he's also, tried to get into the NFL as a wide receiver. So he has played, some arena football and stuff like that, and very similar to Rod in that respect. So I see Rodney is here with us. We're going to let him in. I'm admitting him right now. The Zoom call into the room. I see him. I can't hear him just yet, but I see him. Still on mute or sound not turned on. We're getting there. Can't hear me yet. We have Rodney on the screen.
Yes, I'm on. How you doing, Troy?
There he is, Rod Gatlin.
Yes, how you doing?
Missed my send up. I just have been talking for a few minutes about you. So the first thing I told everybody, say welcome here, Rod Gatlin.
I want to thank everybody for listening. Go ahead, Troy.
Oh yeah, well hey, let it. I love that. Let's put in some shameless plugs. We need more followers. So Rod Gatlin, I met Rod. I was telling our listeners about 12 years ago at a meet in Irvine. I think I remember walking there and bumping into you. And I just told everybody what a wide and diverse background that you have. So start us out. We got a lot of things to cover. Where did you go to high school, and what sports did you play? And then, take us through your athletic career before we even start in on the coaching stuff.
Okay, great. Absolutely. I went to El Toro High School. That's in South Orange County, and I actually coach there right now. And I was a three sport star: football, basketball, and track. And I was a quarterback. I was like a forward in basketball, and I was a sprinter and jumper. And I specialized in the triple jump and the long sprints, but I was a triple jumper in high school. Yeah. And so the day that you met me, it was the Irvine Invitational. And that night, my triple jump record got broken. And you witnessed it. And Anthony Reyes, he's from Elsinore High School. He was I think he might have just graduated at UC Riverside. Was the young man that broke my triple jump record that night.
Wow.
And it was 45.5. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And that's how we met.
Right. Well, then, so you did all that great work in high school, and then that you didn't stop there. So where did you go after high school was over? What kind of sports did you continue on in? Was it just track, or did you do a little bit of everything?
No, I chose football, and I really loved, I really loved track and field, and I really loved basketball first, So in my freshman year in high school, I didn't even play football. I did basketball and track. And then my sophomore year, they needed a quarterback, and I ended up being the quarterback my sophomore year. And I really liked playing quarterback, and football kind of consumed me, and I had to drop a sport, and I ended up dropping basketball because, again, track was so conducive to football, and it's so conducive to all sports. So I'm a speed trainer now, and I really believe in just getting in shape and having speed for all sports. So anyways, to make a long story short, I accepted a football scholarship to Cal State Fullerton. And I was recruited as a quarterback and also a DB and a free safety. And back then, it was really hard for an African American to play quarterback at various schools. So Cal State Fullerton and University of Houston were two of the schools that were going to allow me to play quarterback, and that's what I wanted to do. And Damon Allen was the starting quarterback, and he was leaving Cal State Fullerton, and they needed a quarterback over there, and it was local. And I said, they were coming off a top 20 finish in the nation, and it was just the right place for me to go at the time. And I chose Cal State Fullerton. Yeah.
Awesome. So how did that work out now? How was your career there at Cal State Fullerton in football?
Great. I ended up changing positions to wide receiver. And, again, I was an option style quarterback, and again, speed is good at all positions. And it was easy for me to get on the field and transfer and play wide receiver.
Right.
And they liked my track speed. And so I ended up transitioning over to wide receiver, and it worked out. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So did you guys make any big Fullerton's not known for their football. It's usually known for baseball, as I remember. It's a baseball school, softball school, right? So did you guys put them back on the map as far as football was concerned?
Well, good. Thank you for asking. Actually, yeah, we had a couple of good seasons, but during that time, and you're saying we were a baseball school, they only had a cross country team at the time, and I think that at that time, the former Cal State Fullerton track coach was a student, and I think he might have been a first year head coach, or he might have been a graduate assistant. Right. But they only had a country team, and so Title IX and gender equity canceled the football program, and wow. it opened up other sports for female and for women, and right. So track and field was born, and then they had to get rid of the football program, right. At a time where they had to make a decision. Okay, we're going to go this way or that way, but pretty much Title IX ruined the program, and it was a great experience. We were playing some big schools at the time to kind of keep the program afloat,
right?
And it just gender equity and finances pretty much ended the program.
That's so interesting too, because you and I both know, both at the high school level and even more so. I don't know more so, but both high school and college, football runs everything. Like when you have a football program, you're packing people in the stands, they're buying tickets, yeah. Buying concessions, you're selling parking, right? You get people in there and you're going to make money. And that's what is going to fund all your other programs as a rule. Correct. So that it's kind of interesting. It sounds like they went about it and said, okay, we're going to kill the cash cow of football and then try to make all these other programs go now, like you said. So, and I know we just talked a couple of weeks ago. I was telling everybody we've got a podcast coming up with Maurice Jones-Drew, but we were talking about UCLA jumping to the Big Ten and all of that. And, again, that was money. They wanted money because they were losing money hand over fist for the last 3 COVID years. They're like $60 million in debt. So they sued Under Armour and won a big settlement there. And then now they're going to get a huge cut of this new contract. They just announced this the other day. The Big Ten just signed an unbelievable contract where they're going to get tons of money, right? So they're going to have to go battle, in the Midwest. But I mean, that money now can, again, like you're saying, be redirected. I mean, UCLA is famous for, men's and women's sports, competitive all over the place. But football still, between football and basketball, that's where you're going to bring in a lot of money for everybody else. Track and field, right. We don't pack them in like they do, and they don't get any money for them. So,
right, it's all money driven, and it's a big sacrifice on the student athletes now that they're going to have to travel and leave time from school all the way across the country, right? And in return, they're going to say, okay, well, here's an NIL, you're getting paid now,
right?
And that's the that's the other debate about it, is that you're going to get paid now for this to travel across the country. So it's getting more and more closer to the NFL and professional sports.
Really, yeah.
It's going to be interesting how they cap how much you can actually make in this whole thing. So it's all money driven. It's big business, and it's going to be interesting to see how the conferences break down, and
Right.
it looks like the Big Ten's gonna grab 2 to 4 more teams and up get to 20, and then the Big 12's looking, So I don't know what's gonna happen to the
Yeah.
Pac-12. It may dissolving altogether.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Or become the Big West, like get Fresno State and some of those other, schools out here on the
mhm.
coast. Maybe remnants of the old Big West or even Big Sky, or Big Mountain. There's gonna be a lot of
Right.
teams out there that aren't quite under that umbrella that, maybe they join. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, like you said, that especially it seems like the landscape of sports has changed between, this money is just coming in everywhere all of a sudden. Like when you and I were in college, and it's like, I remember, somebody going, "Hey, I'm going to the student union to get a pizza," and everybody would throw in a couple bucks, and someone would go get a pizza
Right.
and bring it back. And then, people start showing up. You're like, "Hey, you didn't put any money. Get off my pizza." People are just coming, woo, here's food, and it's like, we talked about this earlier, on an earlier podcast, but it's like, now you're going to have this chance, like you said, to make money. And look at, we're totally off here talking about football, but
That's
that's okay. But Archie Manning, his grandson, which is what Cooper Manning's kid, is the number one
right.
ranked quarterback in everywhere, and he's still just a senior in high school this year, I think. And how much money is that kid going to get to go to Texas? You
Just
can't
signing
tell
with
me
Texas.
they've probably already started the payments, right?
It's amazing. Yes. Yes. And same with the local kid over at Malachi Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, and they're already signing deals, and it's also, yes, it might get into the recruiting. They're gonna have to really watch, because kids can, become ineligible.
Right.
Our schools can get with tampering and the whole nine thing, it just open a whole can of worms,
Man, it's
Uh,
just wild right now. To know all the ins and outs, you've got the transfer portal, you've got NIL, and you've got
mhm.
these super conferences lining up, in football. It's just football. There's still some of that's happening in basketball as well, but the basketball teams, you can have the mid-majors still being competitive, with the big boys, and it's a little bit different, but there's still a lot of major, players on the basketball scene too. So, well, we wandered off a little bit there, but that was fun. But I wanted to
Yes.
talk. Now we got you through your high school and then your college, but I also noticed some things on there that looked like you were trying to have a pro career
Yes,
in
I will.
football, especially. So tell us about that.
Yeah, and before I get into that, for anybody everybody always asks, they look at the last name. Yes, I am related to Justin Gatlin, and people will always ask me. I think I was asked that today. I don't know him personally. We didn't grow up together, and we have a whole line of athletes in my family, starting with myself, and even before me, George Thomas. He was a wide receiver. He played in the NFL with the
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta Falcons. He went to the state meet in 1983 out of Indio High School. He was a sprinter, and
Okay.
he was one of Cunningham's wide receivers
Wow.
at
At Santa Barbara or
UNLV.
at UNLV? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was one of his wide receivers, and so every time I see Randall, because we played in the same conference together,
Right.
we always talk about it. Yeah, he was throwing to my cousin, so who was, we called him Mr. Eaton. So he was a 4.2, 40-yard dash, and
Wow.
and he went to 100. And the athletes during our time, we played all sports, and we were forced
Right.
to play all sports, and you had to be very competitive. I always say that I came out one of the fastest years, and I look at Roderick Pleasant. I see that Jackie Joyner Kersey's record got broken, and
Wow.
there's just some amazing athletes coming during this time right now. And
Yeah.
the advanced coaching, the advanced equipment, they're just breeding a whole greater athlete. You know what I mean? And we'll
Right.
get back to me in a minute, but yeah, I came out in 1980, 85, and you're talking about Henry Thomas, you're talking about Chip Rish,
Uh-huh.
and their records still stand. You're talking about Danny Everett, who you
Yeah,
probably went to school with,
I
and and,
did.
and their
I went to
records.
school with Danny and Henry.
I
Yeah.
yeah, so and I was very, very fast myself, but I said, you know what, let me go do the jumps. I'm just not that fast.
Right.
So I had to take into the triple jump, and and that was pretty much my track career. So yeah, so after Cal State Fullerton, I had tryouts. I went around a couple of different leagues. The Professional Spring Football League was one of them, the Utah Pioneers, and I got drafted into that league, and it folded.
Ugh.
It folded a week before the beginning of the season, and it was the strangest thing. And I didn't, we were stuck wherever you were stuck wherever you were having training camp. We were having training camp in Arizona, and so after that, I got together with my agents, and I called around, and I was in Orange County visiting my parents, and I got a call from the Los Angeles Raiders, and it's George Karras. He was on the phone, and he goes, "Hey, we're having mini camp. Come on down. This and that." So I had to go all the way back to the Valley and get my stuff, and I went up to the LAX Sheridan, and I went to camp. But before they made that call, we had a tryout. So and the Raiders were all about world class speed. If you weren't world class speed, they didn't want you. And that was pretty much, you had to have a time on the clock at each and every position. So they brought about 24 of us in to my tryout, and they filmed it, they timed it, and 17 of us got cut that day. This one a 40-yard dash, and I ran a 4.38 and kept me. So I was one of 7 people they cut just off the 40-yard dash.
Yeah.
And I went to camp with guys like Sam Grady, who was an Olympic guy, with Billy Gall. I went to camp with those guys. I was one of the slow guys. James Lofton, on the team, and that's before Ishmael and James Jett got there. Okay, right. So again, even in college at Cal State Fullerton, Wade Lockett, who's the head coach at Norco High School, is a buddy of mine. He went to state in the hurdles, and if you, I hope you have him on your podcast one day. He might be listening right now. Awesome. But he's the head coach at Norco. And he's had Taylor Shorter, he's had Shea Anderson, and it's just to be a wide receiver, you're gonna have to have, unless you're a possession guy, you're gonna have to have some kind of track background,
right?
Play some other sports. So even after that, I trained with guys like Johnny Estrada, who's the ex-Morningside coach, very well known, and Marv Marinovich were some of the guys that kind of trained me,
right?
And now I'm a trainer, so I'm doing kind of the stuff that they taught me, and then I'm always learning and trying to become a better coach, even in my later years.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's one thing I was telling everybody in the warm up before you got into the I'm calling it the green room. Before you get into the green room, every time that I've seen you and bumped into you, there's always, the latest prodigy who's doing, whatever they're doing. You're taking kids to very high levels. They're finishing high at CIF, they're finishing high at state, they're getting rides to different places. So, that quest, I think, and that passion is awesome to see. I know it drives both of us. I don't like anything better than seeing kids up on the podium, at the big shows. You get a kid on the podium at CIF or the Masters meet or at the state finals themselves. You're just like, hey, that's what that's all about. When the kids go on and have success at the next level, that's even greater, so,
yes, it is.
And I've seen that out of you for years now. The question that I had was, next, we're talking about becoming a trainer. And there was, again, I told everybody that you're the first person, Rod, that sent me so much stuff when I asked for a resume that I got overwhelmed. I was like, wow, there's all this stuff. So we're gonna ask you to do the summarizing. But when you started this down the road to coaching, was it like right away once your football career was over, or did it? Because it looks like there's both football in there, there's track. I told everybody that you're doing your speed training with softball clubs. You've got your speed training, a tennis star, Ruby Hansen. There's a lot of facets to what Rod's doing. So fill us in.
Yes, thank you. Well, yeah, like I said, after I left the Raiders, I finished that season playing arena football for Joe Cap. So with the Raiders,
the legendary Joe Cap. That's awesome.
Yes, old Minnesota Vikings coach. Yes,
awesome.
Yeah, Minnesota Vikings quarterback.
Yeah.
And then with the Raiders, Art Shell, Fred Bolitnikoff. But I left the Raider camp, and so that's like halfway through the arena football season. And I finished the season off with the Sacramento Attack up in Sacramento, and Joe Cap was the coach. And it was good. And at the end of that season, they became Miami Hooters, and I just didn't want to play across the country. And I said, you know what, I'm done with football. And I immediately got into coaching. Right, I returned to the San Fernando Valley, and I immediately got into coaching. I saw a job listing in the Daily News for opening at Taft High School, which is the LA City section. So my first job was in the LA City section, and it's not big budget at all.
Right.
And I believe they now this year, you're talking city section, they just now got a turf field and put in, and putting an all weather track over there. So, but we had at the time we had 4 buses that were coming from the LA area, and we were getting really, really good talent. So, and I coached under Mel Hine, who just recently passed away, and who taught me. So I worked under a lot of good coaches, as you can see during my time, and I coached at Servite twice for Coach Rich Gibbs, and he just retired. So I think most people know me from football, and they see me at a lot of the football camps and football training. But during that time and on the side, I wasn't coaching at a high school, or if I was coaching at high school football, I was always coaching track. And I was always doing sprints and doing jumps, so that's what people don't know. And so, and I've done the jumps at just about every stop I've had. I've been to a number of schools, and I don't even think I wrote down that I was at St. Paul for one season as well.
Really? Awesome. I just did a year at St. Paul last year.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah.
Get the coach's name over there. Good friend of mine. What's his name? I coached his son. Who's
Adam
over there now?
Adam Padilla.
Still there?
Adam
Padilla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
I coached over there for 1 year.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Now the thing that I really wanted to get to was your ties to Mission Viejo football, because I mentioned, and again, you sent me some names, and I saw Mark Sanchez in there, and you mentioned another SC quarterback's dad, right? The head coach there, Marv Marinovich. Was it Marinovich? So
yes. When I was in camp with the Raider, Todd was there. He was my quarterback. He was one of the quarterbacks there, as well as Vince Evans and Jace Rader. So yes, yeah.
So how did that come about? The whole thing with you working with the Mission Viejo kids, because I know you went to El Toro, but now you've got this connection there, and your daughter went to Mission Viejo, right? Or did she?
That's very funny that you say that. Yes. And I started off coaching at El Toro in Brea. And it's funny how I've been able to do it. And then because I worked in the district, I was able to have my daughter, transfer in as well, because I coached there. So my childhood friend is the head coach, and he went to El Toro. So he grew up together, and he's actually my older brother's age. And it's someone I really trust. And there was a lot of different schools, actually. Brea was one of them, Los Alamitos, Carson. There was a lot of different schools Santa Margarita that we were considering at the time.
Right.
And it started with Mission. We went through this whole route. We looked in, and it's kind of the same thing that we're going through right now with our college recruiting. We're starting here, we're going through all this, and then we come back to this school. But, it just became a trust thing, in how they were actually putting kids in college in all sports,
Right.
And so, he's over there. A couple of other people that went to my high school are over there. Even the head football coach, Chad Johnson, went to El Toro.
Wow.
So, it just was the right thing to do at the time.
Yeah.
And I have to give credit to Kevin Gillian, who's now the Orange Lutheran coach.
Right.
He was another one that kind of, he wanted Jada as well, so
Yeah.
it just, if I had to do it again, I would go to Mission Vale. It really was the right choice,
Uh-huh.
and if you look at their football team right now, a lot of them ran track. You're talking about Mikey Matthews and Jackson Holman, and these kids are going to play college football. They really improved their speed, and it's evident right now. You see it, in the passing league games. You see it in the real football games that they're playing, and part of that reason is because Brett, who's a defensive coordinator, the head coach, and also the head coach Chad Johnson. He allows the football players to participate in other sports.
Right.
And
That's
it's
big, yeah.
it's so good. They're good athletes, and it's and we're able to coordinate it, and it works out well for them. And the only thing is, don't get them injured.
Yeah, right.
Well,
yeah, we spent quite a bit of time a couple of weeks ago. I did a special podcast, a UCLA edition with Rodney Van Jr., and he got Maurice Jones-Drew to come in, and we talked about him running against Reggie Bush, in high school, and he went to great lengths to detail how important he believed that having a track team associated with football was, and it wasn't a great connection there at UCLA, because I know Rodney didn't get to compete, but then Maurice Jones-Drew did. And so there's been, at various times, there have been some guys that have done that at UCLA, but it's not as prevalent as it could be. But then there's other schools where, that connection is still there and still vital. We were throwing out names like, Roger Craig for the 49ers was a high hurdler at Nebraska, right? And
sure.
you mentioned Willie Galt.
Sure.
Bo Jackson was a sprinter at Auburn, and you've got, I still remember, I tell my kids all the time, I say, now see this cycling, see how he runs when he runs out of the end zone in that Raider game, and Bo runs all the way up the tunnel, right? And I'm like, they go, where's he going? I go, he's decelerating slowly. He's, he's not putting on those air brakes. Somebody taught him how to slow down correctly. So, you see those examples everywhere. And the thing that you said that impressed me, Rod, was about speed. And right now, more than any other time that I can remember, I just think speed kills. It's like every sport, and and in our own sport, in track and field, I was watching this the Olympics, last summer, and it just impressed me. The guy from Canada who won the decathlon, set a decathlon record in the 100 meters at like 10:4, and he long jumped like 26 feet, and he was pole vaulting really high. And I remember thinking, I'm like, oh yeah, speed kills. Like the faster you are, your hurdles, your sprints, your jumps, the javelin, the pole vault, everything is speed. And then you think, oh, well, maybe not the throws. And then you watch Brian Krauser at 6'6" get through the ring faster than anything you've ever seen, and it's like, even the power events that you're thinking are, speed. I keep telling people power is force times velocity. So velocity has a lot to do, with power and
absolutely
the speed aspect. So what do you think? We're talking, this is the first time I've actually had a chance to talk this with a coach that I respect, and not because I just never get the time. I was a tall, skinny white dude that could high jump. So when I played football in high school, I was a free safety, and I think my 40 time was 5 flat. Really, really bad. Like I could jump, and I was smart, and I'd usually be in the right place, but I didn't always get there fast. So I remember working at UCLA my senior year with John Smith, and John Smith helped, bless his heart, because I'm not a sprinter at all, but he actually got my 40 time down to like a 4.7, and I was like, well, that's, it's decent. If I could have played at 4.7 in high school, maybe I'd have been something, but I remember little bits of things that I've learned there, that I've been able to hand down to my athletes. But, when it comes to speed training, what is it now that you do when you're training your athletes? You've got this tennis athlete, and we can all think about how speed helps there. Soccer, basketball, football, volleyball, I could see speed, coming out there. So how do you go about training your athletes and helping them increase their speed?
Wow, and that's just a broad question, and it's not one single thing that really is the trick. It's an evolution of everything, and you're talking hills, stairs,
Right.
flexibility, core, form running, but for me, I do a lot of ladder. I do a lot of ladder. I do
Right.
hills. I love to do chase, which is, you send one person and you send the faster person and you put some heat on them, and if they beat you, you got to do it again, or you give
Right.
them, put in a clock on them, but also, the workouts, the type of workouts, and that can vary per athlete, just,
Right.
knowing the athlete you deal, but knowing the athlete, and I just, try to maximize, for their height and stature, try to maximize their speed,
Right.
uh, the
Interesting.
stride length.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's a huge one.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing some experimentation on that because I've taught my kids. One of the first things I learned in kinesiology at UCLA was that velocity, somebody running, their running speed was equal to stride length times stride rate. It's a very simple formula.
Mm-hmm.
If you're taking 10 strides per second or whatever you plug in there, and then you've got a stride length, I just go, well, look, the first thing that I was taught to do to increase speed sounds weird, but it was to improve stride length by, I said, let's take two athletes. And if you and I had the same exact turnover, like 10 strides per second, and my strides are 2 feet and your strides are 2 feet 1 inch, then when we get done, racing, even though we have the same turnover, you've beaten me in those 10 strides. You've gone
Right.
10 inches farther, right? So
That's
it's a
true.
simple formula. And you go, that makes you faster, even though we have the same physical things, right? But my strides are too short. So, that was Elias taught me at, Long Beach City, pick up your knees, get your feet kicking in the butt, right? And get going through there.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also know that when guys are sprinting, they don't come out of the blocks that way. You're taught to drag your feet and get those feet down, pop, 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 to get out first, right? And then stand up and run. So what do you think about that? I heard you mention, technique and form running and all that. I remember talking with people about, look at the differences between the short, really jacked sprinters, the guys that are like 5'6", 5'7", and they look like, like Maurice Jones-Drew, like 5'7" and 220, huge quad, right? Big guns. And they're super fast, but their stride lengths are not that long, right? And then two of the greatest sprinters of all time, Carl Lewis and now Usain Bolt, were taller guys. Yeah, 6'3", 6'5". So walk us through a little bit of that. That's something that I've been curious about.
Yeah. So yeah, it really varies on the stature. So if you're a shorter, you're muscular power runner guy, you're not going to be in dry phase as long. You may just get up and run, a couple steps, and if you're a Usain Bolt guy that's kind of long-legged, that's cramped in those blocks, and that's me, then I may need to carry my dry phase out a little bit faster, a little bit longer, I'm saying. And there's always that, whatever it is, 10 meters, 20 meters, or whatever it is, in dry, but I think it varies, based on your stature, your height, and your legs.
Yeah. I got an interesting question. I don't know if you've even thought of this before, but I also know that there's a place, in that spectrum, let's say stride length, right? Where there's, let's say someone, you see them and you're like, wow, this guy really needs to improve his stride length. I can see quick turnover, but if I can lengthen his stride just a little bit, he's going to be that much faster. And then you've got someone on that end. And then, so I'm looking at someone who's got too short of a stride length and we want to start extending their stride just a little. Where does it go too far? How can you tell that someone is now overstriding where they can't, get, you know what I'm saying? I'm wondering.
Yes. You know what? And I was just going to say that, someone that there's, maybe they're 800 runners, or maybe they're just tall and long-legged. I've had to nowadays sometimes even decrease their stride, to get them to turn over,
Right.
So there is that sometimes too, where you're overstriding. Are you going too, and it's, and you're too much in the air. You're too long in the air, and you're not getting any. So there's new philosophies now. Everybody says fast arms, and now they're saying quick hands.
Mm-hmm.
Also, push the feet to the ground. Push the
Right.
foot down, and power to the ground, and that kind of stuff. So,
Right.
however you convey it, they can absorb it, and understand it.
Yeah.
All the better.
I was, when I was at UCLA, of course, there was a heyday time for women's athletes. Jackie Joyner-Kersee was there with her husband, Bobby, on the team. Then Jeanette Bolden was there when I was there.
Incredible athletes.
Just amazing. Valerie Briscoe Hooks was training there.
Mm-hmm.
Flojo trained there. Her brother was training there in the triple, and Bobby's thing was the shorter arms. Right. And is that what you mean by fast hands? Because I remember they didn't come up like, they weren't getting way up here. Valerie in particular, I remember kept her hands really low. Right. So is that what you mean by fast hands, or is that just low hands, or what are we talking about?
Good. I mean, good question. I guess it's just a thing where if you're moving your hands faster, then, and then your arms are going to move faster too.
Right.
So
it's shorter levers, right? So a shorter lever is going to move faster than if you're like, all the way through. Like you watch those classic, I always tell my kids, I go, watch the classic Russian, power triple jump, right? Like the long, big arms and swing, right? Where you're looking and going, it doesn't look like they're moving very fast, but then you start realizing that they're probably erring on the side of the really long stride length, right? And not this as quick a turnover. But you're looking at that, and then you go, well, wait, where do I get acceleration and quicker? So I'm like, I keep trying to teach my kids about levers. I said levers, the longer ones are more powerful, but they're slower, right?
Right.
And the shorter levers are quicker, and they're easier, right? Because of that.
Right. That's right. I used that word today, especially with the jumpers. I said, hey, use your arm like levers, like absolutely. And that's funny that you say that. Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, we've got speed training, softball clubs, you're all over the road. Now, what's with your daughter going off to college? You said, what did she pick? Where is she going to go?
She hasn't picked any colleges yet. She's actually going through that whole entire process. And it's really kind of strange because we started with a set of schools that were showing interest, and then she had the season, and then another set of schools showed interest, and then there was a big hiring and firing thing going on, and it happened at Oregon, it happened at Tennessee, and there was schools, and then other coaching hires, especially in the jumps, and they've kind of reached out to Jada, so there's schools in just about every conference that has reached out to her at this point. And it's going to be interesting. She's going to take her visits, and I think that's going to be really the telling thing. And then, as far as fit, coach and academics and everything else.
Right.
But she takes her SAT. She's a senior, so you got so many things going on.
Right.
And she takes SAT this week. And then next week there's also a home visit by a school. And then what else we got going on? And then she starts taking her visits in November. So right now she's got 3 visits settled, and it's NC State, UNLV, and TCU right now.
Okay, awesome.
And it's different. It's different when it comes to jumps, because it's a total different set of schools than if you're a sprinter, than if you're a distance school, if you're a HEP school. You know what I mean?
Right.
So TCU was one of the ones that just came in just within the last week, and their boys jumper won the NCAAs this year, and they had a girl jumper that was in the top 10. Right. And they had a good recruiting class of jumpers, and they seem to, that conference is probably one of the toughest, if not best, jump conferences in the nation. Yeah. Now Florida and Georgia do well, but if you just look at Oklahoma, if you look at
Their
Texas
guy
Tech.
just won the high jump last year, right? The guy from
Yeah,
Oklahoma jumped
yeah.
7.7, won the high jump. Yeah.
If you look at Texas Tech,
Yeah.
and then it goes with gender. Sometimes, hey, they're not strong on the boys' side, or they're strong on the girls' side. Or
Right.
how the girls' jumpers doing compared to the boys' jumper. So,
Right.
so we're looking at some of that. You can't get married to the coaching process, because a lot of times you're seeing that they're leaving. So you gotta
Right.
like the school, you gotta like the track program.
Yeah.
Those are kind of some of the things that we're telling her, so she makes the right decision for her.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's highly ranked, and she's in both her marks and also in recruiting. And right now it's because you can actually sign coming up here in November.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of people that are really knocking on her door. But there's been some schools that have been recruiting her for over a year now.
Right.
And that's the hard. It's that hey, the ones that have been loyal to you, and then the ones that are now that are just coming, it's hard to say no, especially to the ones that have really been loyal, that were there when she was jumping this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they were there early. Yeah. I've seen that happen.
So,
just last year at Vanguard, we had a young man who was jumping like 6'2" or 6'3", and then he just went hog wild his senior year and jumped 6'8", 6'9", and then all of a sudden it was like, well, thanks, but the big dogs, start showing up. You start jumping, 5 inches higher, and all of a sudden, here comes some of the big dogs in, and you're like, oh wow. So, what advice would you give to a parent out there that's got a talented youngster like you have, and maybe he doesn't have the experience that you have, especially with all the athletes in your family? What if this was someone who really, mom and dad aren't athletic and they've got an athletic kid? What would you tell them to do?
Let's start as early as possible, especially
Mm-hmm.
on the recruiting front. It's never too early to reach out in the process. We reached out a year. We reached and contacted a lot of schools, and obviously, she hit a mark early.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of aided things, but fill out the questionnaires, follow up. Really look into all the academic programs, and the coaching staff and stuff like that. To research all the scholarships that are out there that you.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, because in saying that, and I think I sent it to you. There's the John Gatlin scholarship, which will offer a free education if your last name is Gatlin.
Right.
And so that's one reason why NC State is high on our priorities, because it's going to be fully funded.
Wow. Yeah.
And
that's awesome.
And so so to get the best scholarship, there's Pell Grants, there's academic scholarships out there. So I'm seeing, even though there's not a lot of track scholarships, there's a lot of ways that you can get money and get funded. Yeah. And,
so if she goes off to North Carolina, are you going to travel with? Or are you going to leave her to fend for herself on the East Coast?
The plan is to go with her.
Yes.
The plan is to go with. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, they'd be crazy not to hire Rod Gatlin if they could get him, right? Let's get him on staff.
Wow. We as a family, we're thinking about making the move. That could be a possibility. And my connections here to California players, it would be, I have some strong connections out here. That's all I can say.
Right. Absolutely.
And, I think there's some good opportunities and some good matches. Because this is quarterback, country, and they got a lot of linemen, they got a lot of talent. And even with track, I see, there's a lot of coaches right now that are on some of the jumpers that I'm training. And, I have some, other than my daughter, because, there's some good jumpers that I'm working with that are coming up. There's a girl over at Norco, Kaylee Best, and she was the #1 freshman in the state this year.
Wow.
And, first time ever jumping, you know, two girls over at Dana Hills, Roxy Meyer and Gabriella Salinas, that are working hard right now. That I see that have a lot of potential.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I also get a Twitter page. Make sure your athlete has a Twitter, an IG, a Facebook, and build it up. But
get some videos, get some performance videos for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And tag some people and that kind of stuff. But and show your progress, and people will find you. People will find you.
Wow, it's so different. I know it, but just in the last 10 years, I mean, I don't even remember Instagram, back as early as 2012. It may have existed back then, I don't even know, but once I was exposed to it, I was amazed because I was able to start watching. And I've been telling people on the podcast here, again, if you're listening to us for the first time, this is Raise the Bar. I'm your host, Troy Haynes. We have Rod Gatlin with us today, the El Toro high school coach who has a long resume of coaching all kinds of places and people in different sports. And we're just talking about, what were we talking about? I just went off on a tangent. I wanted to throw my name in there again. About
basically how, recruiting and your athlete, and how to publicize them into earning scholarships, and
Instagram,
what you can do, and stuff like that. But
but it's amazing to me how much stuff is out. Like, I have a box that I got from my uncle and my family, and back when we were jumping, I had VCR, so we had able to look at some old jump video. I can't even find a VCR. I can't.
Right.
If I could look on the tapes, I might be able to find a VCR somewhere to play it and go, oh yeah, that's what I looked like 4 years ago. But who cares? Like, you can't do anything with it. So Instagram, I've been watching these people train from all over the world, and I'm starting to get that. I'm kind of looking behind the wizard's curtain. I feel like in the Wizard of Oz when they come up and don't mind that man, he's not really, and you're seeing the wizard do what he does. But I'm like, I want to see behind the curtain. I want to see why these kids, there's a 15-year-old Polish girl that I saw last year, Maya Slodinska or something. She jumped 5'9", right?
Yes.
She's 15 years old. She's jumping 5'9". I'm just like, wow, and you watch them, they're training, and it's like, oh, okay. But they, everybody's kind of gatekeeping. They don't really show a lot, but every once in a while you'll see something. You're like, wow, that's pretty cool. That's a great drill, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But there's a ton more stuff, like the proliferation of people that are working, what you're talking about, the speed stuff, who's the knees over toes guy. One of my favorite guys. I refer him to everybody, because I'm like, I want my athletes to stay healthy all the way through the season. And then there's a guy that there's all kinds of guys doing the speed training, and also just rehab and what I call prehab, the people that are trying to work on, flexibility and strength so that you don't get hurt,
sure.
and stuff. But man, just a real wealth of almost too much. Like, I've got so many people that I follow on my feed, but I'm following coaches like yourself. I follow athletes. I follow trainers, and there's all kinds of stuff that comes across, during the day where I'm just like, so-and-so jumped, 4 inches higher. As one kid, Marcus Gelpi, great high jumper out here. And he went up to Santa Rosa, and he's jumping in Puerto Rico, and he's, all of a sudden he's jumping 7'1", and great guest, by the way. But, every once in a while I just see his stuff, it comes through on my feed, and I just purely by luck. And then, there's another knees over toes guy thing, or there's, the results of the state meet, or, and it's just constant.
Sure.
And there's always something. It just seems like there's always something that's so interesting, and so, the speed stuff that you're working on is just a huge, what do I want to call it? Proliferation, but there's so many people doing it. It's like all this speed agility training and all that. It's crazy.
Yes, and the followers, and that's what's aiding the NIL deals. That they want to sign people that got 20,000 followers or something like that.
Yeah,
and the whole Instagram thing is just, it's becoming big business. I mean, people are
Yep.
starting companies and,
Yep.
branching out. And there's just so many different things that you can find on Instagram. Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. Well, it's got to keep you hopping. So Jada is going to be a senior this year at
Yes,
El
she is.
Toro, right? And
She's
then
at Mission Viejo.
she's at Mission Viejo. That's right. Sorry, I got that backwards. That was your alma mater, but she's still at Mission Viejo. And then so she's going to go through now. What is the goal this year? She's going to jump. You want to get her to the state finals. Is she doing both long and triple?
Yes, she is.
Okay,
Yes, she
she's
is.
doing long and triple. Is she any sprinting? Is she on relay teams and all that too?
She's on the relay teams and stuff like that. She may venture with the low hurdles.
Mm-hmm.
But she's pretty much doing the relays, long and the triple.
Okay.
Yeah. So we definitely want to improve her long, and the goal is to go 42 feet in the triple.
Right.
And if she does that, she's gonna pass some of the some of the better jumpers,
right,
and in Orange County history.
What do you guys think for state for her? What's a goal that you guys have? What have you talked about? And what does she want?
You know what? We don't really talk about winning that. She went to state this year and she actually out jumped everybody. And on what happened in the prelims, which was a Friday night, she was on fire. And she jumped the 40 feet 9 wind legal jump, which in her class is number 2 in the nation right now.
Right.
And we get to the Saturday meet finally. When I wake up that Saturday morning and here goes like a 20-mile-an-hour wind gust going on out there in Fresno.
Right.
And Jada's she's a light feather, or and some of the other girls that are heavier, it's like a tumbleweed,
Yeah.
If you're a tumbleweed and there's a wind blowing, it's going to go. And if there's a heavy tumbleweed, it's not going to blow as hard. So with Jada, I had to adjust her back for almost 4.5 feet. We probably should have just went to an 8-step or a 7 to get her in the finals. A little
shorter.
Yeah, to get her in the finals, but she ended up scratching all her 3 jumps in the finals and wasn't able to place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the winning jump was like 40 foot 2.5, and on Friday night, 40 feet. And even some of the scratches, they were like in the 41-foot range.
Right.
But it just didn't happen for her.
That experience is invaluable, though, right? I mean,
it is.
That's one thing I keep telling people. I go, look, the things that I remember about high school track. I mean, my first year getting over, I jumped 6'8" as a junior, and I got to go to Arcadia. And when I walked out at Arcadia, Mike Powell was out there. He was a senior. He's like jumping 7'1" or 7 feet in high school. There was Chris Bonner. There were like a bunch of guys. Anthony Kerr, SC, I think, who jumped 4.5 when he was at SC, was out there. And I was walking around like a kid at a baseball game. Like I'm walking up, oh, hi, you're Mike Powell. Can I have your autograph? I mean, I was like, I was just starstruck. And, they were like, oh, opening height 6'4". I'd never opened at 6'4" in my life. So I opened at 6'4" and made it, and was just as happy as a clam to jump 6'4" and walk around. Mike Powell comes up to me and he goes, is that your mark? And I'm like, oh, this? I'm like, well, yeah, and he's like, okay. And he just takes off from there and runs up and jumps over the bar. And I don't even remember that. And then he comes up, he's like, thanks, man. And he goes running off to the triple, and I'm like, oh, Mike Powell, cool. He didn't have an approach. He just ran up and jumped over the bar. So, I'm looking at that. And that was my junior year. My senior year, when I came back, I expected to win it. I mean, 1 year of difference. I went from deer in the headlights, just happy to be here guy, to I should win this thing. You know what I mean? So your brain, it needs to be exposed to that pressure, and go through that. The fact that Jada now has been through, being a top qualifier on a Friday night and all ready to roll. And then now you get hit with this wind and these problems. That's just going to make her stronger in the long run, right? Because that
absolutely. And, and then, the very next week, Tara Davis scratches out in a meet, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I said, it can happen to anybody, and it's going to happen again to you, Jada. Sorry to say, that's just This is how track and field is. It's not going to be the first time and the last time. You
Yeah.
know, so get over it, and learn from it. Be hungry from it. Yeah, and mature from it. And it's just I think it's really good for her. It really
Yeah.
is. Like you said, the experience. You can't take the experience of being there and being in the state meet and all that kind of stuff. And and at the end of the day, she's got a lot more meat. She's
Yeah.
gonna jump at the next level. So
Exactly. You're gonna have
yeah, and
conference
we
finals,
got her
right?
senior year coming up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
Got
mm-hmm.
league finals.
Yeah,
You get to the college level, you're gonna have your conference finals, and you go to NC2As, and you got Olympic trials kind of thing. I mean, the meets just keep getting bigger and the stakes keep getting bigger. And then at the same time, a big meet's a big meet. And you either
right,
perform under pressure, or you don't, right? And
right,
if you don't, for whatever reason, you can either learn from it or get crushed by it, and
right.
I'm glad she's got you to shepherd her through that, because you get, hey, you know what? Next time we hit heavy winds, we'll either go with a shorter approach, or make sure that you're fair, by a foot, foot behind the board,
Absolutely,
right? You know,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. In fact, if she's jumping as well as we think she is this year, we'll start off a short approach. That
yeah,
first jump, you get a
yeah,
safe jump in there just to get in
absolutely,
the front, because what they were, she could go 38, 39.
right.
Pretty easily. From a
Yeah,
short approach.
I'm gonna
So that
I'm gonna throw out a name. I had my roommate my freshman year at UCLA was Dwayne Washington. He was a point guard at Millikan. We both went to Millikan, so that's why we ended up rooming together. And
nice,
he jumped 48-3 at CIF prelims back
crazy.
in 1982. Right, he just busted out 48-3. So he's all good. We show up to the CIF finals, the next week, and he went scratch, scratch, scratch. I'll never forget. He was just like, oh, it's like
Right,
he came in, he was number one, I think. He was way up
right.
there with the 48-3. And then, he scratched 3 times. Now he went on to be a great triple jumper at UCLA and jumped, 52, whatever. I'm pretty sure he made it to NC2A finals his senior year. And then he also played basketball over in either Italy or Spain. I got to get Dwayne on here. Man,
There was another guy named Hooks. Do you remember a guy named Hooks? He was
yes, Marcus Hooks. He went to
Mark. He was my
Lakewood, right?
yes, incredible.
Marcus or Brian, yeah, are they brothers? Is there? Yeah,
He was my
yeah,
year.
yeah, yeah. I know those guys, and then
Just three.
Aaron Craver over there at Woodbridge. He's
Mm-hmm.
another Lakewood kid. So he was actually a year behind me. He was telling me one time. He goes, "Do you know Cedric Pouncey?" And he started naming all these guys that were either seniors my senior year, or maybe were a year older, a year younger. I can't remember, but I'm just like, oh yeah, I know this guy. I know this guy. And he goes, yeah, I knew all those guys in Long Beach,
Mm-hmm.
crazy. And then he ends up playing pro football, and he's a
Sure.
great coach there at Woodbridge.
He
There's
does a great over there.
yeah,
Great job.
awesome
Yeah.
program. They got a lot of stuff going on there, but wow, it's a small world out here
Yeah.
in Southern California, and there's a lot of talent, man, in the coaching ranks. When you have former football players that almost made it in the NFL as your speed guy, and you got all
Incredible.
things
Yeah.
going on. So what do you see happening in the future here? I know we've got Jada coming up with her senior year, and then you're saying you may move back east with her if she goes back east. What about training and all that? What are you going to do with all the people that if you leave them behind here in the in California?
Good. That is a really good question. And to be honest with you, I don't even advertise, which is really good for being in our area. It's kind of word of mouth. I've been doing it so long that
Right.
you find me on Instagram or Twitter, or and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would be, for me, I would be leaving a pretty comfortable, easygoing lifestyle.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about it is I used to coach a lot of football and a lot of training, and it would just burn me out. Now I'm able to coach softball and girls, and in different in a different gender.
Right.
And I like coaching girls. They seem to listen. They work harder.
Right.
In different sports, and so just like yesterday, I had a quarterback in the morning time. I had Ruby after that, who's a tennis player. And then in the evening time, I had football practice, and then I had a jumper meet me right after practice. So it was a long day, but it was cool because it was 3 different sports.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying the same thing over time. It's not just quarterback all the time, or football all the time. And so that kind of keeps me going, and that's what I kind of like. And I've kind of grown in. And it's funny, I'm really kind of the same coach, but my daughter Jada, and just kind of what she's done has really kind of expanded my speed in my jump stream. Her success, and the other girls see it, and they want to be like her. They want to train with her,
right?
Or get trained, by her father. So I'm not a genius. I think I'm overrated. I think I work with some really good kids that are smart and they work hard. It's a village where you have to have cooperation from the parent who's paying, and it's an understanding, with the kid, the athlete, and myself, the coach. So there's a lot that goes into it. And you have a long list of names and stuff, and it's different. Okay, I'm training a person, or I've worked with that person. So someone like Mark Sanchez, I've worked with one time. Does that mean I'm his trainer or anything like that?
Right.
No, but I've worked. To Attack. I've worked with him at he came through my, when I worked my station when I worked at a football camp. Did I train him? No. I worked with him. Yeah, JT Daniels. I've worked with him one time. But there are some kids, and I gave you some of the names and stuff like that I've worked with exclusively. So rather I worked with you once, or if I worked with you, a abundance of time, you're gonna always be my family, or I'm always gonna have that attachment to you, and and that kind of stuff. And and a lot of my athletes, hey, they end up doing this, or maybe they don't end up being a jumper or a football player, and they go on, being a doctor and stuff like that. It's always just beautiful to see, them grow as a person, and some of my first athletes at Taft High School, I mean, geez, they're 45 plus now. They're
right.
They're like 40 years old.
Right. Yeah, that makes you feel old when your kids start showing up. My former athletes show up and they're married and they have kids.
Yeah.
They're coming to you, and then their kids end up jumping for you. And I'm like,
no doubt. Yeah.
Wait, no.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. It's like being a granddad.
No doubt. Yeah.
Well, hey, Rod, we're spending time together here on a Sunday, but I know it's a family day, and I don't want to keep you any longer. But this has been awesome. We're gonna definitely
thanks for having me. And,
do it again.
There's whoever's on here. I'm not really looking, but appreciate their time as well.
Absolutely, and we appreciate you making the time and spending your valuable time with us and giving your insights and your experience. And good luck this season.
Thanks, sir.
This is my second year at Vanguard, so I've been struggling to keep up with all the high schools. So it happens so fast, but continued luck training Jada, and her goals and the long and the triple and the sprints and all that. And I'm sure we'll be bumping into each other at the right times.
Absolutely.
All right.
I really appreciate it, Troy. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right. Thank you, Rod.
I love this podcast, and thanks again. Much love.
All right. Thank you, Rod.
Good night.
Good night. All right. And that was Rod Gatlin. You just have to be around Rod. He is he's got so much energy. He's always got a smile on his face. He's a very humble man. You heard him say at the end that he didn't really think he was doing that much. He's just got his insights into what he did, but he's worked with a lot of really good athletes and produced, like I said, over and over. I always see Rod at the big meets. He was telling you the story about his daughter, how she made it to the state finals last year in the triple as a junior, looking to load up this year. He sent a lot of these athletes off to college, and is happy to see them succeed, and happy if they go on and get a degree and become professional in something other than sports, which is what we know happens to a lot of them. So again, thank you, Rod, for your time, and I did not know about the Gatlin clan. I guess I should. That name, and he's related to other great athletes. So join us here again soon. Future guests that I'm trying to get my wish list. If you're listening out there, I would love to get Mike Powell from UCLA, a former teammate of mine and world record holder, current world record holder in the long jump, who is also a 7'1" high jumper in high school. I'm sure he's jumped higher than that. And long jump, Mike could do just about anything. Dunk from beyond the free throw line. We'd like to get him on here if we can. Look for our Maurice Jones-Drew podcast coming up with my co-host Rodney Van Jr. His dad went to Long Beach Millikan, and Rodney Jr. went to Poly. So when we bumped into each other, he told me, "Yeah, my dad's Rodney Van." I said, "I went to school with a Rodney Van." So anyway, you guys have heard that story already. Right now, we're just signing off. Thanks for listening. This is Sky High and Fly Jump Camps podcast, Raise the Bar. Our guest was Rod Gatlin, who coaches long, triple, and sprints. Played some football in college, tried to make it into the pros, and continues to do a great job of coaching here at mostly the youth level, but there are higher up athletes that love to work with them also. And we will see you next time. Until then, stay healthy and continue to raise the bar.